In a sobering reminder of the state of education in South Africa, Anne Berstein, the executive director for the Centre of Development and Enterprise, says the crisis in schooling is a battle the country cannot afford to lose focus on. Recalling devastating statistics, the CDE cites 2016, 2019 and 2021 stats that show that respectively, the majority of grade 4s could not read for meaning in any language, little over a third of grade 5s had some basic maths knowledge, and more than half of grade 1s didn't know the letters of the alphabet following a year at school, prompting this question that we're still asking: what do they do at school? And good evening to you and welcome. You don't hold anything back, saying children are effectively being condemned to school in South Africa. Just break this down some more for us.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity. We've written 5 reports pulling together what South Africa's best academics and international experience have shown us about the South African basic education system. And the truth is that though the president talks of a system, the minister talks of a system on the rise, the president tells us about a silent revolution, the facts are exactly what you've said. A system that is failing to teach the majority of young pupils to read, write, or add. And you know, Imam, when we participate in international studies or tests, our learners participate in tests that other countries participate in, we come in the bottom 3 or absolutely last. And the even more devastating thing is that we test learners at a year older than the tests are designed for. So when they're designed for grade 8s, we test grade 9s. When they're designed for grade 4s, we test grade 5s. And our results are still absolutely terrible. And we're really saying to the country, this is a silent crisis. And it's time that all of us, civil society, business, NGOs, churches, parents, everybody should be screaming much more loudly that something fundamental has to be done. We need to set ourselves some stretch targets so that we're not at the bottom of international tests, but that we're moving up.
And why do you think the Minister, Angie Motshekga, and the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, continue to celebrate this mediocrity you describe?
Well, they like to look at the matric results, and every year we have this sort of festival of these wonderful results. But the truth is that 50% of the people who start grade 6 do not get to matriculate in 5 years. They drop out, they fail, they repeat. Lots and lots of people repeat, and a lot of them don't make it. So when you look at the matric results and you say, look, we've got an 82% pass rate, this is not an indicator of the system, which is not really teaching the vast majority of people what they need. And we're not doing the basics when we actually need to be moving up a gear in order to deal with a much more technological age.
The system runs without accountability. It's compromised by corruption and incompetency. And you share a lot more detail, and I'd urge people to go and read these reports that you've released. What has changed in the last 8 years, since the minister referred to the stranglehold as well, that teacher unions have on the schooling system? So when you put those two things together, you know, how much more of a keen diagnosis do we have at what's at the heart of our school dysfunction?
Well, the minister, to her credit, appointed a ministerial task team of excellent people headed up by Professor John Volming in 2014. This was in response to newspaper reports of positions in schools that were being sold for money. So you wanted to be the principal of your local school, you needed to know the right people, and for a certain price, you could be made the principal. It had absolutely nothing to do with competence or merit. So the minister appointed a task team to look into this. And in 2016, they reported, and their findings are devastating. They said that SAT2 was in charge of the management and priorities and administration of at least 6 of our provincial education departments, possibly more. That the whole system was effectively being run by SAT2 appointees. Now, you can't do that. And we think this is one major cause of our problems. State capture of the education bureaucracy and also corruption. Now, this task team had very practical recommendations on how to deal with this situation. And they're not news to anybody. But none of them have been implemented at all. And here we are in 2023. So we're saying that's a major cause of a failing bureaucracy in the main.
Yeah.
We also don't, Imam, you could be a teacher and you're a fantastic teacher. You're there every single day and you work really hard and you care about your learners. And I could be a terrible teacher. I might not pitch up on a Monday or a Friday, and I really don't work very hard and I eat my lunch in class. But nobody is taking me to account, and we will earn the same salary or get the same increase at the end of the year. So we have the minister herself told us we have the highest teacher absenteeism rate in SADC.
Yeah.
Now, this is just not good enough. And we're saying it's time for a fresh new team to head up education at the national level, from the minister to the DG and the top team. And we need people really committed to reforming the system. It can be done. It has been done in other countries. It's time that we all put much more pressure on government to say that this is not nearly good enough.
And, when you talk about the absenteeism, which is just another, addition to this architecture of, incompetency, you also add the other thing that's been thrown in is the statistic around 4 out of 5 teachers in our public schools lacking the content knowledge or even the pedagogical skills to teach their subjects. And then you tie that back to what we quoted throughout the course of our interview, some of these missed opportunities in the, grade R, double R and foundation phases to really embed a keen understanding of some of these subjects that tend to blight students later on in their school journey. We've missed a huge opportunity here as well. We don't have time on our side. There's a whole bunch of grade 5s onwards who've missed that opportunity to create a really great foundational structure.
Absolutely, you summarized it perfectly. All of this, so I'd say a few things. The minister came in 2009. She's been there a long time, and compared to a very low bar in the cabinet, she hasn't been a bad minister. And in the first, 6 years, she really tried to introduce accountability. There were annual tests of every single school, an independent unit to investigate what was happening in different parts of the schooling system. And then she tried to implement accountability measures with teachers and principals. And after a lot of pushback from the unions, particularly SAT2, she backed off. She caved in. And that's why we're partly getting these terrible results. We're not monitoring the system and there's no accountability. And then we had COVID. And the way in which South Africa dealt with COVID, like many other countries, has devastated learning. People estimate that if you're a 10-year-old, you're a year behind. So these are facts which we have to deal with. We need new energy to say the national interest must prevail. It's time to really distinguish between teacher unions and officials who might have their own unions, and to get a real commitment to reform and to set ourselves targets.
Right,
the president told us in 2019 that he wanted every child to learn to be able to read for meaning by 2030. But as we were told earlier this year by the reading panel chaired by the former deputy president of the country, He just said that. But there's no budget, there's no plan, there are no targets, and there's been, in fact, not progress, but the reverse.
And
so
we've got to leave it.
Everybody got concerned about this issue.
We've got to leave it there. And again, as with a lot of subjects we talk about on our program, a national conversation on this urgent crisis certainly needs to be had, along with some of the changes you're saying that must be made urgently. Anne Berstein is with the Centre for Development and Enterprise, and she is their executive director. You can go ahead and read the latest 5 reports that they have put together.